Good morning, everybody. This is Scott Robertson from the Never Done and Always Changing Model Railroad. In this case, it's my G scale, I call it 1 to 24 scale railroad. And today I just want to talk about making trees. Um, for some of you who've been following me online, I've been making some wire trees to represent aspens. I'm trying to create a few groves of aspen. This is one small grove, some initial trees that I've been doing. And I just want to talk to you about some of the techniques, some of the things I've learned. Nothing earth shattering, especially for those veterans out there. But for people trying this out for the first time, maybe some of these ideas would be helpful. This is what I found, etc. So I'm going to walk over here to my workbench, and as you can see here, just panning around the room, I've got all kinds of projects going on at one time. So what I was doing is I was deciding I wanted to do something else besides the typical conifer tree that I've had, and I've got some desert stuff going on also, and just thought, well, I want to do some aspen type trees. And with that, I was looking for best way to make them. Let me swing around here for a minute. There we go. And I guess the first thing I want to say is, for those of you not familiar with him, I would highly recommend that you check out a YouTube site called Boomer Diorama. I know many of you out there are familiar with him. Hopefully you follow him. He is a wealth of information on modeling techniques. And you just have to check out his site. It's very professionally done. He's very good at instruction and demonstrating techniques. And again, he's not demonstrating techniques that are necessarily earth-shattering or anything new, but he does a really good job at it, and it's easy to pick up, and just a wealth of information. So with that said, I was picking up on some aspens that he made in HO scale, and I decided to see what I could do in my 1 to 24 scale, obviously much larger. So one of the things I was doing is trying to figure out what could I do for trunks, maybe to make a bigger canopy, leaf structure, etc., would change. So I've been experimenting with a whole bunch of different ways, and here's just a few things that I found about this that might help you out. First of all, I'm just using regular florist wire. This is 22 gauge wire. This is 26 gauge wire. I'm primarily using the 22 gauge wires, a little heavier. It's a little more to twist, but I think it gives me a better branch armature, although I've used the 26 gauge to create some thinner, smaller branches. The other branches, etc., I started using this 12 millimeter grass, and I don't know if it was smaller than some of the 12 mil I've had in the past, but it just wasn't covering quite the same. So with that, I ended up going to some sisal, I think it's called, rope, and grab a piece here. You know, it's this kind of stuff here, and I just cut it off into pieces and chunks, and it gives me a more sizable, I call it a secondary branch structure on here that I eventually can either add a little bit more of this like I did on this tree here. And then when I flock this with my leaf texture, it should cling to that. What I was having problems with on some of these other trees, and again, I don't think these are bad, and I've gotten some good comments on them, is that I was getting kind of a mat of this because I was having problem getting the glue to stick to the wire branches. And then when I was gluing on the leaf structure, it was just kind of matting up. And so I didn't quite get the openness that I was hoping for. So I keep experimenting with different things. So again, one of the things that I found was using matte medium is a great thing. It's something that the Boomer guy really highlights for a lot of reasons. And again, I'll let him explain that to you, the reasons why he goes into a lot of depth on that. But what I did find was, in order to get this to stick on this thin wire, I found that using the Aleene's tacky glue really was a way to go. It's thicker, and when I attach the rope or static grass to the branches, it just sticks, and I could poke it in there and it would hold on. Where before, when I'd be putting it on with just the matte medium, it just wasn't enough surface coverage that I was getting. Others have found that really successful. I just wasn't finding it all that successful. So that's kind of one tip I would recommend. It doesn't dry totally clear, but you can't really tell the difference. On this tree here, actually, what I did was I tried some super glue, ACC glue, ACA glue, whatever it's called. And that was just messy, but that worked. It dries shiny, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be painted over before I do the flocking. But so I think that was the best way to go. So using the tacky glue, using the sisal rope to create the branch structure. And again, it's kind of matted in there now, but you kind of tease it out before you paint it, and it loosens that up. And it gave me a better, longer branch structure, which is what I was looking for, that I could move away from that main branch. Now for the trunks, I've tried a bunch of different things. I've used balsa. I believe this tree here is a piece of 1/2-inch balsa dowel with twisted wire up in here in the top. And what I mean by twisted wire is I've actually taken some of this florist wire here, see if I can get that in focus, built that up a little bit, and then glued it together, stuck it in the top of that balsa piece, and or this other trunk structure that I've used, which is a piece of 1/4-inch tubing. Let me put that down, that's probably better. These are 1/4-inch tubing. These are stakes you can buy for, you know, about $1 a piece. Or you can just use regular 1/4-inch irrigation tubing. And I stuff a few of those wire things in there to stiffen it up as needed. And then in the top, I would just add some wire to the top. And when I wrap the wire starting in here up to make the branches, I get a nice tall tree in this scale. Again, I'm working in 1:24 scale. So these end up being about 24 to 36 foot tall trees. Not bad. Some of these aspens can get rather large, but again, trees are all different sizes. So a tree is a tree. And for this modeling technique, these could be really large O scale trees or really large HO scale trees, or, you know, medium-sized G scale trees. So it really doesn't matter. Don't let the scale bother you when it comes to that. And so when I get that put together, I typically would use this twisted wire and then loop method. And what the loop method does is it gives you a little surface to place that on. And then you eventually go and you can cut that and separate these two pieces like I've done here with those. You see those have been separated. You can do it without it, and I found with the tacky glue, you can actually do it without doing the loop method, but they gave something for the stuff to set on so it didn't fall off the individual branches. As you can see here on this tree, I was doing something a little different. I used a mixture of 22 gauge and 26 gauge wire to create this secondary branching structure. And then I already had them separated. And so when I put the tacky glue on there, I think it'll work well because the tacky glue allows this armature material to just stick to it. Now, speaking of the armature, the wire wrap, when you wire wrap it, you get this texture that you can see there. And then what I did to cover that up, there's a number of things. One of the things I've been doing is I've been wrapping my trunks in florist tape, which has been real effective. And it gives it a little texture, gives you something to paint, especially on the plastic tubing here. It's a little slick. It probably would work, but this, again, the florist tape there gives it a little texture to hold on to. And in this case, I was trying something else. You can use modeling paste, fiber paste, which gets a little expensive. It's an acrylic product. I really like the product, but I found if I just use a little bit of diluted wall patching, lightweight wall patching material. Let me see here if I can grab it. You've probably seen this in the stores before, in Lowe's or Home Depot. I use this for a lot of things, actually. I like this much better than the heavyweight stuff. I use it for rock work, all kinds of things, roads, etc. But I diluted it a little bit, and then I could just kind of paint it on the branches, paint it on, and it gives it some tooth, and it kind of covers up a little wire a little bit while still leaving some texture. And then when I paint it, I get that nice coating that's on there. I've also, like in this tree, I've just wrapped the wire tape, or excuse me, the floral tape, all the way up the trunk. It's a little awkward, but it can be done. Anyways, those little things like that really helped. And the other thing I've gotten into is trying to figure out when you're doing these type of trees. And the Boomer guy, he really talks about these too. These trees really can be any type of tree. I mean, when you look at this right now with the way these branches are splayed out, do this against this black surface here, you can see this better. You can see, that's a nice open type of conifer. It still is going to have some flocking. You could add some more smaller static grass to this. And again, I'm not using a static grass machine or anything like that. Just adding some matte medium, some sticky glue, and putting it on. Now, one thing I would recommend against, and I've done this before in the past, is I have used, let me put this back. I've used spray glue. And for a lot of the trees you've seen in some of these earlier shots or maybe in other videos, I've used spray glue on conifer trees and flocked them, and I've made bottle brush trees and furnace filter trees and Caspia trees, and you name it, I've experimented with it. And while the spray glue works, it also gets on everything, and it doesn't have long adherence. In fact, I'm having to go back now on a lot of my trees and re-enhance them. Where what I found with the matte medium is it just holds and just lasts for a long time. You can touch it, stuff doesn't fall off. Just works a little bit better that way. Anyways, for leaf material, I'm using trying a lot of different things. There's the Scenic Express. There's a Nock product, but I found that's just not available in the United States, at least not in a number of the Western United States anymore. And the shipping from Germany, where it's from, has also gotten extremely expensive. And they mentioned that on their website, that the tariff fees have just kicked their butt and they've stopped shipping. So there aren't a lot of places in the United States that have it in stock or that can get it. So if you did, you're paying a ginormous fee. So I found some other products, and I found this product at a Michael's Craft Store. Oh, I didn't find it. I found this one online, actually. This was through Amazon. It was a relatively cheap price for this. And of course, there's the Super Leaf. And this other product I found this at Michael's. I think this whole thing was, I forget now, $7 or $8, something like that. Nice size leaves. I was trying something bigger for my scale. But there are a lot of other products out there you can use. Ground foam. You can use also. The leaf gives you a nice texture for the deciduous trees. Anyways, I just thought I'd share a few of the things that I've been working on, some of the pitfalls. Uh, one more thing, one of these bigger trunks back here, that was actually a cardboard tube that I took off of a pants hanger. Ends up being about 14, 16 inches tall, and it's cardboard. It's easy to stick into, but it's firm enough. And then I wrapped that also in florist tape. So for a thicker trunk and a larger scale, that's a nice feature that can be used for a conifer, or in this case, these aspens that I'm working on. So this is my grove. I continue to work. That's it for now. I hope you get something out of these little tips and tricks. And signing off from the Never Done and Always Changing. This is Scott Robertson. You have a great modeling day. Here's my little decapitated man. He fell on the floor. Still can't find his head. Oh well.